Hello, this is Nick, and welcome to another episode of Talking Politics. This is episode 44, and today is Monday, September 20th, 2021. Now, I haven't made an episode in a few weeks now. I guess you could probably say I either slowed down or haven't really got bored with it. I still watch the news every single day, probably just like you do, maybe. I still get pissed off about what I see, and hopefully you are upset too. And not because I want you to be angry at any particular party, but because we are human beings. That's the number one thing. We are not wild animals. We shouldn't be living like wild animals. We shouldn't be spreading hatred left and right, attacking each other, vicious, greed, you name it. Now, there are countries all over the world that are very greedy, the ruling class, and I'm talking about like something like Russia, China, North Korea, you name it. These communist countries where a certain person gains power and does not want to let go of it. Is it because of greed? Because of lust? That once you have something and everything is just so beautiful, you don't want to get rid of that power? You can't lose it. So you'll do anything to stay in power. In a perfect world, everybody would just play their part and then when they're done, leave. If that makes sense. It'd be like, you know what? I don't want to be the person in charge forever. Now, see, these politicians we have, they get into power. They become president or a politician, they become a senator or whatever, lawmaker, and they don't want to lose that power, just like in other countries where you have Putin, who's been in power for a number of years, and he doesn't want to let go. He doesn't want to let go. Excuse me. Doesn't want to let go. And North Korea, Kim Jong Un and his father, they didn't want to let go. Saddam Hussein, Yasser Arafat, if he's still alive, I can't remember who's the leader there in, what is it, India? No, not India. Iran. But anyways, what's going on in the United States is it gives the impression, whether you believe it or not, Democrats want to consolidate their power. One person might say, oh gosh, more conspiracy theory stuff. We just want to scare the other side. Want to stir up the base, right? But what does it look like to you? In other podcasts, I've talked about this, to where Hillary Clinton, and I mentioned this in other podcasts, my previous podcasts, that Hillary Clinton purchased the Russian Steele dossier and used that and gave it to the FBI, who started their investigation, started their spying on Trump and his campaign. They started this whole thing with the Russian collusion. A lot of people try to ignore that and push it off. But in the last week or so, even though this has already been out there, and the other side, meaning the Democrats and the fake news media and so forth, want to try to just laugh it off, pretend it's not real. But it's starting to come out there. You talk about the indictment, I believe it is, into an attorney for Hillary Clinton, and and he's starting to come out with information, and there, and that might be just a little tiny crack in the windshield where it vibrates a little bit more and more. Pretty soon it's going to spread out, and they're going to get more people caught up in this. Pretty soon, hopefully, Hillary Clinton, who purchased that Still dossier, she needs to be locked up. If that's what she did, she needs to be locked up. And this fake news media that's trying to cover this up, they need to be silenced. They need to be shut down. They need to be called out for what they are doing by trying to suppress this information. On YouTube, even though this is episode 44, one of my episodes, I want to say it was 29 or 39, something like that. A few weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago? I don't recall. All of a sudden, one of my emails just stopped working. I couldn't figure out why. So finally tonight, I got around to looking into it, and it was shut down by Microsoft. And it said I violated one of their terms. Like, huh? What? So it took me probably 20, 30 minutes to basically get into the account. I fought with it a little bit here and there. And I was watching The Walking Dead tonight. I'm into that. I've always been into that since day one. And so, anyways, I finally get into this email. And it said that I've violated a term of the service or whatever, something like that. And my episode of 29 or 39, I forgot which one it was, I was actually reading a story from MSNBC by Rachel Maddow. I read that story in my podcast, and then I made a comment about it. And so when my channel, or however you want to say, my YouTube channel, and email was shut down, I made a comment back on it because, you have a way to dispute it or whatever. And so I made the comment, I says, so what part did I do wrong? I asked in this message back to Microsoft or YouTube, whichever it went to. I guess Microsoft owns YouTube. I don't know. I don't know why my email would be shut down. Does it have something to do with YouTube? Are they a partnership or what? But anyways, so I send that message back and I says, what did I do wrong? I was reading the story of Rachel Maddow. And then I talked about the Russian collusion, which was what episode 29 or 39 was about. And I says, so in the message they sent me, they said that I was spreading disinformation. I said, so what's the disinformation? Is it the information that Rachel Maddow was spreading was disinformation, or what did I say? Can you tell me what I said? That's what I said to them. And I made the comment about how I said the Russian conspiracy theory was fake, that it was made up. I guess that's the disinformation I put out there. I don't know. That's what I said in my podcast. And then I made the comment that just in the last few days, because I just sent this email out a few hours ago, I sent a message and I said that it's coming out about, how did I put it? The attorney who was arrested. And and it's coming out that the Russian collusion was fake. I says, is that the disinformation? I says, basically, I can't remember exactly word for word what I put. I wish I would have copied it down. But I says, I'm going to sue you for violating my First Amendment, for violating my freedom of speech. I basically said, this is the United States. This is not China or Russia. I says, I understand how you want to help the Democrats suppress information that is being spread by the Democrats. Anyways, like I said, I don't remember word for word what I put in that message. But like maybe 20 or 30 minutes later, YouTube sent me back a message and said, oh, we reviewed the video again, and we found that you did not violate the terms of service, and so we reinstored your episode 29 or 39, whichever it was, I can't remember. They put it back on. And I'm like, surprise, surprise. I'm thinking, because I really didn't violate any terms of service. I spoke my piece. I exercised my freedom of speech, my First Amendment, which we have the right to do. We have the right that if the government does something we don't like, we have that right to speak our minds and say, hey, I don't like that. In the meantime, the Democrats believe, it appears, that if they say something and you disagree with what the Democrats say, they're going to come at you tooth and nail and try to rip you to shreds. They will try to destroy you if you say anything that counteracts what they want the population to believe. And that should be wrong. You need to stand up and say, you cannot do that. We should not bend over backwards and believe everything the Democrats tell us just simply because they said so. They are not gods. They want to be dictators, if you can tell, because they don't want anybody disagreeing with them. What else do you call it? What else do you want to call that? If you disagree, they will destroy you. That is when we are in a whole world of hurt. If we cannot question the government or the leaders or whatever that say something or want us to do something that we should not or have to do. The government, now getting into the politics of things, after this little rant, getting into all the things that have been taking place for the last few weeks since my last podcast. I haven't said anything about Afghanistan because the last episode that I put was before entering Afghanistan and having it turn into a major disaster by the Democrats, by Joe Biden. That was a disaster. Is that disinformation by me saying it was a disaster? Am I spreading a big lie? The Democrats want you to believe that everything was fine and dandy, that it was awesome, that it went really well. That's what they want you to believe. So I guess if I tell you that it was a disaster, I guess I'm spreading a conspiracy theorist. I don't know. But I think it was wrong. I seriously think we should not have left billions of dollars or trillions of dollars worth of equipment there. And now we're spending U.S. tax dollars, according to the media, according to the news. Now we're sending them cash, sending them money. They are our enemies. And Joe Biden doesn't want to accept responsibility for this kind of stuff. I guess it's Trump's fault now? Or are we beyond that to where Biden is going to start accepting responsibility for what he's done? Am I spreading information by saying this? Misinformation? That's what's happening. That's what's on the news. Is that we're sending them cash? It was millions, I believe, 20, 30, 40 million that they were sending them. And then even more after that. And there's just other information as well. What are they saying on the media, on Fox News? That Biden might be releasing billions or trillions of dollars to the enemy, to the Taliban. Is that spreading disinformation by saying this? I don't know. But the thing is, it's disgusting. It's something we should not be doing. But of course, it's Trump's fault, right? Is that right? Now, Biden wants to say that he was locked into this, that he was trapped. Well, look at all these other things that I've talked about in my other podcasts. How was Biden trapped into doing all this? All these other things, Biden had no problem doing the opposite of what Trump was doing. Left and right, Biden signing executive orders reversing everything. Who was holding this gun or whatever to Biden's HUD saying, you cannot change Afghanistan? Who stopped Biden from doing it? Biden could have did whatever he wanted. This was a major disaster. It was all Biden's fault. Now look at the border. I've already talked about this before in previous podcasts. How it's a huge disaster on the part of the Democrats on this one. I've talked about before how during the campaign, when you had, a dozen, 2 dozen Democrats talking about how we need migrants, and if you disbelieve what I'm telling you, all you got to do is just go back to the debates and listen to it, to watch it. I could repost it on here for you if that's what you need. But the Democrats were saying we need those migrants. And then, as soon as Biden won the presidency, all of a sudden these migrants start showing up at our doorstep, basically saying because the Democrats were inviting them to come in. All these months long of campaigns of Democrats saying, we need you, we need you, we need more migrants. All this stuff, we love you. And then they show up and Biden's like, hey, it's not my fault, that's Trump's fault. Even though Trump had the borders very well secure, they weren't coming up if when Trump was in office at the end, towards the end. And I guarantee you, if Trump was stayed in office, they would not have come up. They probably would have stayed down where they were. And Trump probably would not have left these billions of dollars or trillions of dollars worth of equipment in Afghanistan. There's a possibility, a huge possibility, what happened with Biden in there would not have happened with Trump. They were too afraid of Trump. And now you have Miley, 4-star general, what, 3 or 4-star Miley. He needs to be court-martialed. A lot of people say, oh, he's a hero, standing up to Trump, I guess you could say, tipping off China. No, I think he should be court-martialed. He should be tried for treason. And in case you don't know, if you Google it and you hear all the negative out there about what happens to you if you are convicted of treason, that is the death penalty. But that's exactly what he did, is he committed treason. He went behind Trump's back. And he undermined Trump. For those of you who hate Trump, you're probably perfectly fine with that. But the thing is, and some of these on the media are saying, oh, that's perfectly normal for, what is he, the Secretary of the Army or whatever in the heck he was. I forget what Miley is or was under Trump. But they're saying it's perfectly fine for a person in his position to have a back channel with, let's say, China or other countries like that, with his counterpart, supposedly they're saying. But you know what? There is one leader. There is one commander-in-chief, and that was not Miley. Maybe it's perfectly normal for him to have a conversation with his counterpart, but it is not normal for him to undermine anybody who is the commander-in-chief, who is the elected commander-in-chief. That is not normal for him to undermine. This is a fact of the tail wagging the dog. And that is not what he is supposed to do. Undermine the commander-in-chief. Work with, and it appears that he was working with Nancy Pelosi or something, or the Democrats or whatever. That's what it appears like. That's what it looks like. He was working for the Democrats. Look at this. Everybody, it seems like everybody that was working for Trump was fired, right? They were forced to resign or they were fired. I don't know how many are still working that were working for Trump and are still allowed to keep their job. But almost everybody that worked for Trump, it seems like, they got rid of them. They fired them. But here you have Miley, who was not even touched by the Democrats. And it just so happens he undermined Trump. And it appears that he was a mole working for Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats, telling China, hey, don't worry, if Trump decides to attack you, I'm going to give you a phone call and tell you. What the hell is that? That is treason. And he needs to pay for it. And you need to find out whether he was bribed or given money or what. We don't know if the Democrats were slipping some cash or making promises to Miley or what. What the hell is going on? Now, with all this that I am saying, am I spreading conspiracy theory information here? I don't think so. This is all out there. This is all in the news. This might not be what CNN wants you to hear, but this is not disinformation. This is not conspiracy theory stuff. And the thing is, if you believe it's conspiracy theory stuff, and the truth finally comes out, you're going to be in for a shock. The shock of your life. You're going to be in denial. This is like a parent who has a child or a wife who has a husband that's cheating on them. Or for the parent that has a child that's using drugs, they're in denial and they don't want to believe what's going on right underneath their nose. They're like, la 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 la, I can't believe this. No, la 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 la, I don't want to hear this. And so the husband who has a wife that ignores what he's doing, he's going to go out and cheat. He's going to go out and have relations with another woman. And that wife, she's just going to pretend everything is normal. Everything is okay. Or if she has a son that's on drugs, she's going to pretend her son is not on drugs. Everything is perfectly fine. And for you, if you're madly in love with the Democrats and the Democrats are committing crimes left and right, you're going to pretend that everything is okay. The Democrats are not doing anything wrong. That if Trump does something wrong, the Democrats need to go after him tooth and nail. But it's okay if the Democrats do something wrong. The Democrats can do whatever they feel like. It just so happens that Trump is held to a much higher standard than what the Democrats are holding themselves to. You can sit there and go through all the little hypocrisies that has taken place over the years. Sorry, I'm adjusting my mic. For example, we can talk about how in 2016, the Democrats accused Trump of stealing the election in 2016 from Hillary Clinton. And you can sit there and make up your excuses. Trump stole the election. Oh my God. That's what the Democrats wanted to say in 2016. And this is in my episode 29, 39, whatever, that YouTube temporarily blocked. And it's a fact. There's a lot of you who do not want to believe that in 2016 the Democrats said Trump stole the election. But it happened. That's what happened. And I've been tweeting about this on Twitter ever since. And the Democrats try to impeach Trump. Is that a conspiracy theory? It happened. They did. They impeached him twice. I don't think that's a conspiracy theory. Is it a conspiracy theory that the Democrats made up the Russian collusion? Like I said, it's in the news. It's coming out. They, like I said, the attorney for Hillary Clinton, he's the one who helped purchase the Russian Steele dossier. And who knows where that's going to lead? It might lead right straight to Clinton, to Hillary Clinton. And then hopefully she's going to go to prison. I hope. Is that a conspiracy theory that I'm spreading there? Because once it finally comes out, an investigation comes out that that's what she did. She's going to go to prison. So I guess that conspiracy theory is true. Like I said, CNN probably doesn't want you to hear this, There's the information. There it is. What else? Conspiracy theory. The border? Is that a conspiracy theory? We talked about that a little while ago. I don't think it's a conspiracy theory. It is there. There's overcrowding. I don't think it's a conspiracy theory. I think it's a fact that CNN tends to avoid that conversation. It's a fact that Vice President Harris wants to ignore the border. It took forever for her to go there. One of them, Hillary or Biden, basically said, "We're at crisis on the border," something like that. Is that a conspiracy theory that I put out there? That's what they said. They want to ignore it. And now it's even worse as of today. Now they're saying the Haitians that are down there. And then I was watching it earlier. They're saying that a lot of them were from South America as well, of course. Is that a conspiracy theory? I know Fox News was trying to fly a drone over the migrants. And then the FAA tried to stop them, saying, "Hey, no, you cannot fly your drone. It's interfering with our police work, our helicopters," or whatever they said. Is that a conspiracy theory? That I said this? It was on Fox News. I know Republican haters are going to say, "Well, it's definitely a conspiracy theory." They'll make up an excuse as to what's going on there, right? Is it a conspiracy theory that Joe Biden is where? Camp David, I think. Can't remember where he's at. But he's on vacation again, hiding from the cameras. Is that a conspiracy theory or is it true? I know every time he didn't go to Camp David. Trump went to Mar-a-Lago, where he controlled that property. If there were any listening devices down there, he could have it swept. Where Mar-a-Lago, maybe he would have a difficulty checking to see if it was bugged, if his information is being spied upon by the Democrats or somebody else. Is that a conspiracy theory? But the thing is, Trump did not trust the Democrats. Is that a conspiracy theory? I think it's true, and I think Trump had every reason. Every time Trump did something or said something, you would see it all over CNN. A source close to Trump today said blah, blah, blah. They never said who. But all this information is just suddenly leaked. By who? Who leaked the information? Never know. But like I said, maybe it's a conspiracy theory, but it's just a thought. It's just a thought. That Trump's phones were tapped. That if Trump ever said anything, there were listening devices all over the place. So my theory is maybe that's why maybe Trump went golfing, because he could be out in a wide open space and have his private conversation and hopefully keep his information quiet that way. I don't know. Am I spreading a conspiracy theory? That's just a thought. That's maybe that why Trump did it. Maybe he's doing it just because he's the old man and he wants exercise. Hey, why not? At the age where he could retire, should retire, right? It's okay if he wants to do that. Joe Biden. Now Joe Biden's constantly down at the Camp David or wherever it's at, eating ice cream, whatever the hell he's doing, trying to hide from the cameras. Joe Biden said that he's going to be more transparent than Trump. Huh. 15, 20, 100 times a day you'd hear from Trump on Twitter tweeting. For Biden and Harris, you hardly ever hear from them. Transparent. They're not transparent at all. They're hiding from the cameras, from all the disasters that they have been creating. Is that a conspiracy theory? You have a good day.